Initially, Madonna was signed to Mark, but after the success of her first album, Sire Records, part of Warner's, wanted to sign Madonna direct. Madonna quickly left Mark Kamen's behind, in all ways.
Well, we lived together for a year in New York at the time we were making the first record.
Water under the bridge now, it is clear to Mark that she had to do what she had to do.
Madonna is very clever. Very clever. The second album, which was Like a Virgin, which Nile Rodgers produced, was her biggest selling record. I think she sold maybe, 16 million records with Like a Virgin, which kind of like established her as the ultimate female artist in the recording world.
Like a Prayer was the most kind of berserk brilliant. You know, I can't think of anybody, as far as sheer kind of like brilliant offensiveness. The idea of, there's that great scene where she's writhing around in a slip in front of a field of burning crosses. So essentially, she's using one of the most potent symbols of evil in American history as really great backlighting. You know, only Madonna will do this.
Maybe the reason Madonna became so famous so fast was because of her genius for rebelling. Through the 80s, Madonna was a rebel who was still singing fun pop music, releasing records like a Virgin, True Blue, and Who's That Girl? The defiance was more pronounced in the 1989 record, Like a Prayer.
When she was starting out, she was somewhat of a conventional sex symbol, you know, kind of presenting herself for an audience, but with this defiant edge to it. And as time went on, by about 1990 in the Blonde Ambition tour, it turned around and she became not at all a conventional sex symbol, and she became almost totally about defiance, and really became almost kind of like a rock and roll figure of rebellion, you know, where her sexuality was something that was completely in your face, and not at all about her being the object, but about her acting out kind of in front of you and expressing herself regardless of who looked.
As being a woman who was clearly sexually, or who was projecting an image of being sexually aggressive, which is not a role that women have traditionally occupied until relatively recently.
Well, part of it is that it's what she's known for. I mean, when her first scandal, when there were the nude pictures that surfaced, this is going back to, I believe, 84, 85, that Pantest was going to publish. She was very smart about having a T-shirt that came out and said, "I'm not ashamed."
You know, she styled herself as a sexual predator almost, and that was not something that we'd seen before.
You know, I think you get into trouble when you begin to try to pretend you're something you're not or defend yourself, and she wasn't defensive at all. You know, she basically said, "I pose nudes, so what?" You know. Now, it helped that it didn't contradict her image. It's not like she had said, "I'm a nun," and then she's there with naked pictures. She had always been writhing around anyway, so there really wasn't any great contradiction to it.
She managed to, you know, do the sex photo book and create her little scandal with that. But then, unlike a lot of people who might have been defined by that for the rest of their career, you know, 'cause it's kind of like once you take off your clothes, what have you got left to show? Well, then she put her clothes back on.
With Madonna, you know it's her, and I think a very telling example now is watching Britney Spears do this color-by-numbers version of the Madonna success book. You see her acting out in this way, but it's not driven by any personality. She's just hitting her marks, you know. I don't think anyone can deny that, even if you hated Madonna's music and didn't think anything of her, I think anyone who knows anything about her or watches closely can see that what was informing her sexuality during so many years was a genuine anger, a real anger about the church and about her father, and about authority figures that was coming from a real place. And it wasn't made up just to get attention.
Sometimes you have to do that in order for people to really stop and listen. And then once you have their attention, then you can, you know, you can really go somewhere with it.
I think the thing that is really rare about the way Madonna has used her sexuality in public. It was revealed in the sex book. I can't think of another example of a celebrity, a female celebrity, revealing herself absolutely naked in public and having the point of view be her own. She was not an object in that. It was as if she was looking at you, not you looking at her.
I think also the force of her personality and just the way in which she's been able to really control her image and put herself on display as being this person who's not afraid to sort of challenge the media and challenge popular conventions or challenge cultural conventions, I think has also just made people really attracted to her.
1991 to 92, the years of the Erotica album, the Truth or Dare documentary, and most notoriously the sex book, will always be remembered as Madonna's most defiant years.
Well, when the sex book came out, absolutely everybody hated it. You know, it got a terrible reaction. It got a terrible reaction from conservatives, obviously.
That book cost $50, and she sold 1 million books. That's $50 million.
But it also got a terrible reaction from art critics. People did not take the book seriously. They saw it as just a hype. And people wouldn't even admit that it was shocking, which it sort of was.
Part of Madonna's raison d'etre is to push buttons, and even 20 years on, an image of one of her stunts was beamed around the world.
Madonna kissed Britney Spears on the Video Music Awards. The act of her doing that, you know, you could just chalk it up to somebody who wants to be in the spotlight and have people talk about her. But also the act of doing that was really kind of intense in the sense of how many, you know, a picture of two women kissing was on the cover of everything the next day. And that's really powerful.
In Madonna's case, it's sort of a happy accident that what she naturally would want to sing about and how she would want to act is something that's going to get a lot of attention. I don't think she's doing it purely, you know, to say, look at me, look at me, look at me, although she certainly does want attention. Probably the artiest part of her career was around the time of Erotica and the sex book and the Girly Show tour. It was, if you look at the fashions that she wore at the time, they were the most inaccessible and the coldest. But I think Erotica is a really different record. I mean, that's one of her records that holds together best as an album. But it's a very dark record. You know, it's a fairly radical record as far as for what's supposed to be essentially a mainstream pop record. A lot of it conforms to very underground dance music standards. There was a kind of subgenre at the time called sleaze music, which was very much based around bass lines and very kind of sinister sounding rhythms, and Erotica very much took off from that.